And of course, this health care bill is now, the GOP health care bill is headed to the U.S. Senate.
All right, Congressman Scott Peters is joining us with more. Congressman, thank you for stopping by. I knew you just flew back from D.C.
Yeah, nice to be out here on the patio with you.
I know, huh? We thought we'd enjoy the nicer weather out here. Get ready for the rain. Yeah. Did you expect the vote to go the way that it did?
We didn't know. I mean, we didn't know if the Republicans had enough votes to put this on the floor. You know, they insisted on doing it with only Republican votes. I've been banging the drum for a long time. If they would work with some of the more conservative Democrats, I think we could have solved the problem in a better way.
Okay, so you voted against this thing, and a lot of the talk yesterday was this vote went through without the analysis, if you will, from the CBO, and that's what happened last time.
Right.
How does this pass without the CBO kind of chiming in and saying the CBO is bipartisan, right? So how did that happen?
I don't know. I mean, it's I think they were really desperate to get the votes. I think they worried that if the CBO score came out and people went home over this one week break here that we're at home, that they might hear from their constituents that it was a bad idea and they might not get the votes. But there's a lot of famous quotes of Paul Ryan himself saying, you know, we shouldn't be voting for something when we don't know what it costs. And that's exactly what we did yesterday.
And that's what happened?
We have a pretty good idea from last time that it's we're going to cost 24 million people insurance coverage, and we know some of those same infirmities still remain.
Let's talk a little bit about that. Critics of this say that this is going to affect people that it really doesn't have anything to do with. This is not going to affect them, but the people that are watching right now that will feel the effect of this, what are they going to see if this passes and goes through?
Well, so I have a friend, a 4-year-old named Charlie, who's she's been a leukemia patient, and she's got a pre-existing condition. She's doing well. Her mom is a hairdresser. Her dad works in a small business that doesn't have to provide health care. It's too small to provide health care. So they depend on these individual exchanges. In California, they're working pretty well. I mean, there's a lot of competition. That's not true everywhere else. But that family's got to be worried that even though they'll have access to coverage, it's going to be so expensive that they just can't afford it. And that's the kind of thing we're worried about. We could do better. And the fact is that there are some markets, like Iowa, where the exchanges aren't working that well. Sure. But we know from talking to doctors and hospitals and insurance companies what we need to do, and that's exactly what we didn't do yesterday. We still have a lot more work to do, and if we work together in a bipartisan way, we could actually solve the problem.
I think a lot of people are saying this like a framework, a skeleton of sorts, and there's a lot to be fixed between what the House passed and what the Senate is going to vote on. Right. A lot of folks saying this doesn't even come close to anything that's going to pass the U.S. Senate. Do you feel that way? Do you agree with that? And what kind of changes do you think will happen between now and then?
I hope it's not. I hope it doesn't pass. I just think this is a very, very political thing, and we knew that, you know, when you have something that's a health care bill that's opposed by doctors, hospitals, insurance companies, Catholic charities, Planned Parenthood, you know you got more work to do. And so I would love to be part of a bipartisan conversation about exactly what we really need to do to fix these markets, and I look forward to that, but we haven't had it yet.
Take us to Washington right now. What's the chatter?
I'm staying here.
I think that answers it
right there. What's the chatter? What are you hearing? What's going on?
So I have some Republican friends who really want to solve the problem. I know that they're frustrated. A few of them voted against this, and to their credit, they did. And I have a lot of Democratic friends who are saying, let's just work to figure out what we need to do. And we actually talked to insurance companies. We talked to Covered California. We've talked to providers about what we need to do. We know we have answers to this. And given the chance, we would put them forward.
Congressman Issa was the deciding vote yesterday. Now, by the way, we did reach out to the Republicans, our local Republican congressman as well. Obviously, you're here and they're not. But the question now is, Issa was the deciding vote yesterday. He voted no on the previous version. Do you know what changed in his mind? Not to kind of make you put words into his mouth, but what changed between the last time we had this vote and this time?
Oh, we actually didn't get to vote on it last time, so he said he was a no.
Of course. Sorry.
I don't know. I mean, I have to leave to Daryl, and we work together on a lot of things. I really disagree with him on this vote, but you really have to ask him about that. I don't know. You know, people talk about Obamacare as the reason for it, but this didn't solve any of the problems in the current health care bill.
Have you ever seen in your years in Congress and all your previous experience the kind of celebration almost that we had yesterday with the president standing in front of Paul Ryan and everyone else, celebrating what was essentially one step towards a finale, which it doesn't even seem like it's going to be an easy road, but it was just the first step.
Yeah, it's like the first quarter.
Yeah.
At the end of the first quarter. You know?
Sure.
Look, I don't understand it. I mean, frankly, there's a lot of concerns that this is really taking coverage away from average Americans. That's not in the face of that concern, I wouldn't be throwing a party with Bud Light. I just don't think it's the right thing to do.
Sure. A lot of congressmen, the bill is enormous, and some of the congressmen who voted yes on it didn't really read the whole thing. I don't know if you read the whole thing, but is it any way to grasp just how complicated and convoluted these things actually are? Because I know that you guys have staff members. Everybody reads through this thing as much as they can.
One of the problems we had in the Energy and Commerce Committee, which is my committee, was we hadn't seen the bill except 2 days before the committee hearing. So we depend a lot on outside analysis. We know from the Brookings Institution that they think a 13% increase over what would have happened in premiums. We know that Kaiser Family Foundation talked about a senior who's makes $50,000 in San Diego by 2020 seeing a $3,000 increase over what would have been. So we depend a lot on those analyses. Sure. We would have loved more time to take that in and maybe consider that in our decision making and really come up with a better answer.
What do you think is going to happen in the Senate?
I think they're going to start again. I do.
Really?
And I think it's fortunately we ramrodded this through so quickly. The Republicans did. We only wasted 8 weeks. So I hope that the Senate comes up with a more constructive process, and then when it comes back to the House and is final, that we can have a more bipartisan answer.
Congressman, thank you for stopping by. Did you bring this weather back from D.C.?
I never complain about the weather here.
I know the weather is pretty fabulous. Always good to see you.
Good to see you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for coming by, Christina.